But right now, we are going to talk a little University of Akron, a little basketball, a little Mid-American Conference, and a little coaching change here the last couple of days for the Zips. John Gross is out. He decided to pack up and head to the college in Charleston, and the Zips had their guy, and they didn't have to look far. They didn't have to look long. Dustin Ford now is the new head coach of the Zips, and I said, I'm going to reach out to my guy Nate Ulrich. It has been a while. Nate does a great job for the Akron Beacon Journal, and he joins us now here on the show, 1310 WDPN, and all of our social media platforms. Nate, good afternoon. How you doing, partner?
Good, Sam. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a while. Last time we talked, I think you were still on the beat for the Browns, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a while then because in 2022 I became a columnist, feature writer, and so I bounce around a lot. And
yeah,
when there's a team I'm involved with, like Zips basketball, and there's big news story, then I kind of dive in, and go back into beat writer mode.
Perfect. So you enjoying everything that's going on at the ABJ?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the fact that I'm able to bounce around and cover, the three major Cleveland pro sports teams, and cover University of Akron and Kent State. Hey, you see me once in a while, high school football, things like that.
Yeah.
It's nice to do different stuff. I do enjoy it.
Good stuff, man. Well, now that you've given me all this information, expect to get a text at least once a week now for the rest of your life, because now I can talk to you about anything. So let's talk about the Zips here now. And Nate, when it started to percolate a couple of days beforehand that it was something was close to happening, and then the College of Charleston got brought up, and then within 16 or 17 hours, John Gross was on his way. And I'm happy for him. I don't know what else he could have done at Akron. I mean, no, he didn't win an NCAA tournament game, but my gosh, the wins, the culture of the program, you almost expected them, Nate, to win the thing every year, whether it was the regular season or the MAC conference tournament title. What are your thoughts on John Gross finally saying, you know what, it's been a good run, but it's time to go somewhere else?
Well, it's definitely bittersweet for the University of Akron, for the local basketball community, because there's no way that the MAC is a better conference, or the Zips are a better athletic program without John Gross. He is a legend. Yep. He's a Hall of Fame caliber coach, and when you talk about, I'm involved with the Summit County Sports Hall of Fame, he should be in there. He's right there, with the Keith Dambraughts and the Bob Huggins, some of the guys who've come through Akron and taken the team to the NCAA tournament. In the Division I era, began in 1980-81 for Zips men's basketball. John Gross has taken Akron to the NCAA tournament more than anyone else now. He and Keith were tied at 3, and John surpassed him with 4. That's the bitter part. You don't want to lose a coach like that, no matter what, and a great guy too, who tried to do everything, with the highest level of professionalism. Mm-hmm. Being around him, I can say confidently, he treated everybody with respect, and just had a great reputation in the community. The sweet part is, it's a great story for Dustin Ford, who mm-hmm. was John's right-hand man and John Gross lieutenant, for 18 seasons together. All 18 seasons, John Gross has been a college basketball head coach at Ohio, at Illinois, and at Akron. Dustin Ford has been with him every step of the way. And now Dustin Ford, in his late 40s, gets a chance to be a head coach at the college level for the first time. He has been a high school head coach before, but this is the first crack at a collegiate head coaching job. And he's from a coaching family and comes from a great background and played for the Ohio Bobcats and all that. He's dedicated his life to this. So that is the sweet part of this story.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And I'll second you on John Gross. He was such a pro's pro. When I used to work up at the radio station in Akron, he would come in studio like as much as time allowed him to. He didn't have to do that. He could have done it on the phone. He'd come in. He would hang out before the interview. He would stay after the interview was over. We would, have some fun and talk about life and stuff. And I think he is he's a pro's pro, and I think the College of Charleston is getting a great one here. Was there any doubt in your mind, Nate, that Dustin Ford was not going to be the guy? I didn't really think they would cast the wide net for people to come in and interview. I thought Ford was the way to go. Did you feel the same way?
I did. The only slight doubt I had was if he decided to go with John, because
With him, yeah.
it's what he's done so far, right? But I kept telling myself, this is the stop they've been at by far the longest, 9 years. They were at Illinois for 5 and Ohio for 4. So I just think Dustin has so much respect at the University of Akron and in the kind of among the alumni and the diehard fans who follow the program closely and the donors. I just thought that if this makes sense for him to take that bite of the apple and no longer be the tandem, go out on his own and be the head coach here. So I just I was pretty confident that this one made sense for him to make that move. But I thought he was going to be their number one option. It was just a matter of is he ready to take that head coaching job? And I got to be honest with you. He's had other opportunities, and I've learned that for sure from him. I did interview him today, and I'll have a story on our website tomorrow morning. And Akron Athletic Director Andrew T. Goodrich, I talked to him last night, and they both talked about this is a guy who, John obviously was a hot name in this hiring cycle, but Dustin in his own right had interest, and some of the other opportunities he didn't consider just the right fit at the right time. But this one he definitely did. So, I'm really eager to see what he does with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch because the culture is there. Obviously, he was right side by side with Coach Gross the whole way, and they know what the philosophy is. It's just moving down the bench a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. Nate Ulrich is our guest, sports columnist, feature writer. You can check him out. By Nate Ulrich. By Nate Ulrich does a great job for the Beacon Journal and also USA Today Network as well. Nate, are you surprised that John stayed at Akron as long as he did?
A little bit, but I think that a few things happened. One, I think on a personal side, he has kids. He has 3 kids here. They lived in Summit County the whole time, and they're starting to grow up. His youngest son is in his 2nd year at Akron. Wow. I'm sorry, his oldest son. He walked on with the Zips, Connor. But the other kids are, I believe his daughter is, they're still in grade school is what I'm trying to say. So he had a young family. You don't want to keep bouncing around necessarily all the time on a personal level. He's a Midwest guy, right? And that's where his head coaching stops have been, and he's from Indiana, so I think he felt comfortable here and in the MAC and things like that. And really a key that I need to mention, and he kind of hit the perfect storm in a way when it came to the NIL era being introduced into college sports. Bud Wentz is a local businessman, and he was a Zips fan when John got here. He was a Zips fan before John got here. He was a Zips fan and had tickets in the Keith Dambrot era. And he was kind of at the forefront in the MAC on the NIL stuff and starting a collective. And he and John, formed this partnershpartnership, and it's really kind of put the Zips at an advantage here in recent years. So I think he had, a lot of good things going when it came to that and that setup that he had with Bud Wentz. So I think those are some of the reasons why you saw him here for so long, and obviously with the success coming in as a result of some of those things.
That's a great point. Now there's a couple of big money guys up at Akron, but Bud Wentz is one of them. I'm sure you know who the other one is I'm speaking of. So What will the fallout be here, Nate? I mean, do you expect guys to say, you know what, coach is gone, I'm out of here, or do they, have enough respect for Coach Ford and the way he does things that maybe they'll hang around if they can quote unquote work things through? Well, how do you see the fallout here either way?
Well, in terms of the transfer portal and trying to retain some players, um, I think it'll help that Dustin Ford is the choice because he's been involved with coaching these guys, recruiting these guys. Um, you know, Dustin and John were a great team, and think the players are going to feel that bridge of connectivity between the two guys, and one of them staying to kind of carry that torch that John's passing to him. So I think that's real. But at the end of the day, and Dustin was pretty upfront about this because I asked him a very similar question, saying about continuity, and he's saying you guys got to make decisions, and the way college sports is now, it's a business, and the money can be life changing even for some of these guys at Akron. Let's not forget John Gross, as much success as he has had, and as well respected as he is, he lost Nate Johnson last year. Akron lost Nate Johnson last year to Kansas State. Nate Johnson was the MAC Player of the Year, the MAC Tournament Player of the Year, the MAC Defensive Player of the Year, and he parlayed all those accolades and a really good season into a nice payday and went over to Kansas State with an NIL deal that I don't know the specific number, but I've heard it was a significant number, and I don't blame him at all, or I won't blame anybody in his position for doing that. That is just the situation that we're in with college sports right now.
Nate Ulrich is our guest from the Akron Beacon Journal, joining us here on the Sam Bourquin Show, 1310 WDPN, and of course, all across our social media platforms, including the Q92 Radio YouTube channel. The state of the Mid-American Conference, Nate, as we move through all of this with the NIL and the transfer portal, and we know that the football has its challenges. Obviously, the baseball program is back to life again, but you had a team come in starting with, I don't know how they're doing that now, Nate, but I don't think there was any scholarships offered when they restarted that baseball program. So they picked up a nice win the other day against Toledo, so they're starting to, get it going a little bit. But as far as basketball at Akron in the MAC 2026 and moving forward, it was a pretty top-heavy conference again this year. Middle ground, and then there was the cellar dwellers. Where is the MAC moving in your eyes now as far as the coaching, the players, the financial packages they can put together, their attendance, what the viewership looks like across the ESPN Plus platforms? Where do you see all that as we move forward?
That's a great question. I feel like things evolve so quickly and so drastically that I can't even wrap my mind around breaking out the crystal ball and telling you, man. It's wild. And like I said, there's no way the MAC is better today than it was yesterday when John Gross was still in the morning, the Akron Zips head coach. So I think it's a blow. And that's no disrespect to Dustin Ford. I think he's the right choice, the logical choice, and I think he's got a real chance to kind of pick up where John left off in a way that John did after the Keith Dambrot era, and it did take John a couple of years. There were a couple down years that he built it back up. But yeah, with the money, it's just that's a thing. Like it's almost kind of like I think a fair analogy is minor leagues and major leagues in baseball. The idea that you're going to get called up if you're a good enough player to, one of the high major programs, and they're going to pay you, and they're going to pay you well, and it's going to be too much to refuse. And I think that, again, that's where the Zips have found themselves in that kind of situation with the Nate Johnson. But again, a credit to Bud Wentz and the Fear the Root Collective that he founded, and John Gross and his assistant coaches. They did retain a lot over the years. Obviously you point to Nate Johnson leaving, but they did keep Tavari Johnson, who entered the transfer portal for a day last off season. And I talked to him about that. And I said, did somebody just kind of come to you from Akron, with the Fear the Root Collective and make an offer and convince you to stay here? And the answer was, well, of course something like that happened. But it was also, I really like it here, the coaches, the trust, all that. So if you build a good culture and a good environment, you've got a chance. But if the money is at a point where it's really going to change your life, and in a team like Akron, in a collective like the Fear the Roo, don't really have a chance to match it, then you can obviously lose guys. So it is hard because there's just so little continuity now.
Right.
And Akron had that with John Gross, and I think that the Zips have a good reason to think that they'll have that with Dustin Ford too. But to answer your question, Sam, I do think it's minors and majors.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Nate Ulrich is our guest from the Akron Beacon Journal. Does a great job covering Akron, feature writing, high school stuff up along Summit County Way. Check him out on all of his social media platforms. Now, I was thinking about, Dan Hipsher, Keith Dambrot, John Gross. Hipsher he had a couple nice teams. Keith was phenomenal. And of course, John did a great job. They've been pretty, I don't want to say lucky, but they've been pretty strong as far as people leading the basketball program at the University of Akron. You just hope they can keep that up with this day and age. That's like, I don't want to say unprecedented, but you look at some of the other, mid-major schools, even in the MAC and some of the other smaller conferences, the coaching ship has been pretty steady over the decades for Akron.
Yeah, it has. And the challenge in maintaining that, and if Dustin experiences success like John, this will become relevant because he'll be sought after. And the challenge is, and this I believe was, a big factor in John's decision. It goes back to NIL and what do you have to fund your roster? And when I interviewed John and I interviewed Andrew Goodrich yesterday about everything and asked them, all the questions, John didn't want to say specifically, that was the reason he left, that, he wasn't getting the NIL support from the university that he wanted. He commented and he shifted to the great resources and investment that Charleston has in its program. But Andrew Goodrich was, I thought, pretty transparent. He flat out said he expects Charleston to invest more in revenue sharing than Akron, and he thinks that was a factor in John's decision. So that, you can pay your coach well, and John was paid well.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I've had his contract, I've had many versions of his contract through public records requests. The last one was signed in June 2025, and he was making, a lot of people get a little confused about this, but he was making $850,000 as a baseline. That was his base salary, right, combined with something they call supplemental compensation, and those were annual figures. But he had a lot of incentives built in too. And with all the games they won, the MAC championship, the MAC tournament, the NCAA appearance, there's all these different little bonuses that he can get. And so it's safe to say that John was making about $1 million. Mm-hmm. And I haven't gone line by line and added up all the different incentives, and I will at some point. But, so that's good money. But that's only one thing that you have to worry about nowadays as a head coach. Your salary is one thing, and then what kind of money do you have? What does that pot of money look like that you're going to have to fund your roster? And then within that, under that umbrella, there's the NIL from the collective, from the Fear the Root collective. And then there's what is the university contributing? Because when the House settlement came down and university athletic departments were permitted to share revenue with athletes and thereby directly pay athletes,
mm-hmm.
there you have it. So John had that support from Bud Wentz and was, that was great. But where was the level of commitment from the University of Akron?
Yep.
And that's the challenge that MAC schools and other mid majors are going to face.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, we got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And the other thing about with John going to Charleston, you don't have to worry about funding a football program there, right? That you can keep a lot of that money and stick it into the basketball program or the collective, if you will. It's a great, you can recruit to that part of the woods. Beautiful down there, just about all year round. And I think John's going to do very well. In the minute that we have left, do you think the way the world is now with conference realignment and everything, is the MAC in good shape? Is the MAC sustainable as a conference long term, or should we be worried decade by decade?
I think worried decade by decade because things change so rapidly. Like I said earlier, and like we talked about, Sam, I don't think he can feel comfortable or safe about how any of this is going. Now, you got a team out in California that just joined the MAC, and paid,
right?
Yeah, and paid a lot of money to be in it, and is footing the bill for teams to fly out there for football games. So,
unbelievable.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? I think they're trying to use the MAC as a stepping stone. What does that mean? Are other schools going to try to do that? Is the MAC going to benefit from that? What do the TV rights look like, down the line? Those are the big questions. And to your point about football, I know we don't have much time. You got to have Andrew T. Goodrich on there because I talked to him about that, and he will not let go of his side of the argument on that. That football basically is a must to pay for everything else.
Okay, Andrew T. Goodrich, you are on speed dial, my friend, courtesy of Nate Ulrich.
He's a great conversationalist. You'll love to have him.
No doubt. Definitely. Well, we're going to definitely have you back on, too, down the road. You get great insight, Nate. I appreciate you taking the time today. We'll continue to follow your work. The Akron Beacon-Journal doing a lot of great stuff there. And good to catch up with you again and have a great rest of the week, all right?
All right, Sam. Thanks so much. Take care.
You bet. Nate Ulrich from the Akron Beacon-Journal joining us here on the Sam Bourquin Show, 1310 WDPN.